ladies and gentlemen, and all incorporated transhuman algorithmic entities as defined by the European Union Court of Human Rights, live from the near future, in association with King Waspinator Studios, and filmed before a live studio audience in beautiful downtown Icon City, Total Party Skills presents yet another episode of America's Next Top Antichrist, with your host, King Krampus. And now here he is, the moment you've all been waiting for, King Krampus.
So I can't help but notice that a lot of the YouTube critic channels that talk about nerd stuff and nerd movies, your critical drinkers and geeks and gamers and clownfish TV and heels versus baby ass and everyone else in that little sphere are all making a big hay out of Lord of the Rings news again. I'm sure it's trickled a little bit into the gaming commentator channels too, about how a college in Nottingham, England, in one of their Lord of the Rings classes, has dared to say that perhaps Tolkien's writing might reinforce negative racial stereotypes. Now, right off the bat, why the fuck are colleges having Lord of the Rings classes? I mean, it's probably akin to, people who get a degree in Arthurian legend and other completely useless subjects where you've spent your entire academic career staring deep into the bowels of someone's fantasy novel. And in order to be able to fill time, make a whole university class out of Frodo walked a long distance and went like that, the end. You have to come up with things to talk about and shit that's topical and stuff that's of interest to the youths of today. And so finding racial angles in Lord of the Rings is a way to do that. And I'm sure some of their takes are a bit ham-fisted, and this reflex to try to simplify it by saying orcs represent black people is lazy, but it's not entirely inaccurate. Were the Easterlings supposed to be East Asians? No, their Easterlings are probably more like Eastern Europeans, your Slavic types. Southrons might very well just mean your Mediterranean types, you Spaniards, Italians, Greeks.
Balkans.
The Harad and the Haradrim are probably more explicitly Arabic. And orcs are twisted versions of elves, and in Tolkien's work, elves are very Nordic. And so, they're not dark-skinned in an African sense. But there is a lot of phraseology about race. The race of man, the race of elf, the superiority of some of those races over some of the other races. I remember when I saw Return of the King in theater on its opening day, there was an audible grunt from a good chunk of the viewing audience when Aragorn was giving his little speech in front of the Black Gates saying, "And we,
men of the West."
There's kind of an audible, what? I can't believe he said that, no. So these things are embedded in Lord of the Rings. And, if you're going to be making a fucking college course out of discussing these books, it's as valid a subject to get into as anything else. The thing that's wrong with the fact that you have all these channels jumping on this story is if this is some new thing. Literally, I just saw, and what caused me to finally say, fuck it, I'm going to make this video, was the title of a critical drinker video saying, they're attacking Lord of the Rings again. Again? This is not new news. This is news from several years ago. The Nottingham College has been offering these Lords of the Rings classes for quite some time now. And this has been one of the subjects in that for quite some time now. And I have a memory of the past, which is this weird thing that people used to have before they've completely ceded all their thinking to your fucking smartphone devices. I've seemed to recall that this very same story has been brought up and made the rounds before. So, again, the people who are beginning this story are the people trying to get clickbait out of repeating news from several years ago, as if this is some new thing. Like, you just gotta have something to complain about Lord of the Rings about every once in a while for the algorithm, I guess, or some shit. You know, there's a phenomenon amongst Lord of the Rings fans and amongst D&D fans who've turned to the OSR and a large chunk of Star Wars fans that's very reminiscent of Jilted lovers. A man who was very much in love with this woman, spent years together since they were young, high school sweethearts, got married in college, spent the next 20 years all the way up into their 40s trying to build a life together, only to end up having it fall apart. And now you're bitter and depressed. The D&D version of this is probably the best analogy of just how you have a bunch of people who have just become pathetic losers who cannot stop stalking their ex-girlfriend. In the form of the OSR, they keep going to hookers or finding bar sluts and talking them into wearing their ex's clothes and giving them a BJ and then giving them $50 and pretending that it's all right, but they still can't help but constantly be checking on and spying on what their ex is doing. And their ex, because they don't want these guys to still keep bothering them, has been leaning further and further into the tendencies that led to their breakup in the first place. And their obsession, their inability to let go, the constant snide remarks of, oh my God, look at what she's wearing. Oh, look at who she's dating now. The resentment that comes along with that. Like, oh my God, she's got bisexual tieflings on her cover. Ah.
She never was willing to have a threesome with a tiefling with me. Fucking bitch.
The OSR is never going to really satisfy you because the OSR is a prostitute, a cheap prostitute. And the real D&D has moved on and doesn't want you back. There's similar vibes around Star Wars. People who just can't just let go and move on. You don't like it anymore? Fine. You're an adult. Explore other tastes. But no, you just can't let it go. You gotta keep checking out what she's up to and telling everybody what a fucking slut she is because she's not sucking your dick. And it's pretty fucking pathetic. You know, it's not that Star Wars hasn't made mistakes and hasn't made some bad movies, and it's not that Dungeons & Dragons hasn't completely gone off the rails into La La Land. And, you know, the people running the Lord of the Rings intellectual property rights are, you know, clearly caught up in the zeitgeist of
modern acceptable politically correct thinking.
And you don't, and it's all right for you to not like that. It's all right for you to say, fuck it, I don't want to have anything to do with this, I'm walking away. But then you actually have to walk away. You can't just be hiding in the bushes, looking through their window, jerking off, complaining about, oh my God, they got black elves in the Rings of Power. I can't believe it. You know, you gotta. That's not good. That doesn't make you look good. You know, only other guys who want to jerk off in the bushes complaining about Rings of Power think what you're up to is any good, and it's shocking that there's so many of them out there.
But is it shocking?
This is pathetic loser type shit. Like, you know, you can midlife crisis your way through it trying to pretend that you're cool and it's her fault. It's not your fault, it's her fault. She's the one that betrayed you. And as I said, it's not like she hasn't had her problems, that she herself hasn't been leaning into the very things that were starting to turn you off and cause the rifts to occur in the first place. But you yourself have also been diving deeper and deeper into the very same toxic mentalities and habits that are ensuring that there is no reconciliation ever to be had. And the fact that all you're doing is just still standing around talking about her while she has moved on and doesn't seem to be paying attention to what you're doing at all. It's like, yeah, you know, D&D's new art might be lame and the changes to orcs might be lame by your standards and stuff, but she seems to be doing fine doing it and is doing it actively to keep you away. And she's not standing around the corner like, oh my god.
Did you see that OSR bitch he's dating now? Ugh, what a skank.
There's very little to none of that. They're basically like ignoring the OSR's existence entirely. It's an inconvenience to them financially. You got nothing else to talk about? You can't find anything else? I mean, obviously, for some YouTubers, especially your critical drinker types, I mean, their entire livelihood is just based off bitching among things. But who cares what some fucking college kids in Nottingham, England have to say about Lord of the fucking Rings? It's jolly old fucking England, man. Like, obviously, whatever their take on it's gonna be fucking fruity and full of white guilt. It's England. Star Wars, I guess maybe out of them is probably the one that's the most maybe regrets how things went down and might be the most open to getting back in a relationship with you guys. But you're not making it easy on them by the way you're acting, and they because of that, there's peer pressure from Star Wars' friends telling Star Wars to leave you guys alone. You know, even though Star Wars does seem a little tempted, Star Wars does kind of miss the good old days. But you're never going to get there acting like this. Find a new fucking franchise. Find a new hobby. Dare I say, get the fuck off the internet and quit worrying about teenage nerd properties. Read War and Peace. Read an actual book once in your life. Does it all have to be about fucking fruity robots in space? How old are you now? And even resorting to the OSR thing, like, are you really actually into role-playing games? That, you know, you're so hung up on only getting to play D&D that if you're not able to play D&D comfortably, you only want to play clones of D&D, but you can't stomach the thought of getting into or playing a different role-playing game, that I might dare say that you're not actually into role-playing. You're not actually into the hobby. You're a brand loyal clout chaser. And that's part of why you can't ever give up on letting go of this horrible crushing blow you took to your ego because D&D rejected you. Because it's all you want. You don't want to play Werewolf the Apocalypse. You don't want to play Cyberpunk. You don't want to play GURPS. Only D&D sucks dick and has that pussy that you want. And that's still part of the problem, is the OSR is never going to fully replace that. Because the OSR just kind of looks a little like her. Yeah, but just a little. And maybe sometimes the OSR does suck your dick kind of good. But the pussy ain't ever going to feel the same. It's never going to be the same. And the OSR doesn't care about you because the OSR is a fucking prostitute. And they're a dime a dozen. You know, they can dress themselves up to look like anybody. You know it's not real on some level. And that's why you keep looking at your old love. Stalking her at the mall, following her around downtown, taking pictures of her, showing it off to your friends, like, oh my god, look at these Mexican orcs who aren't Mexican, and it's actually kind of a little bit racist of everyone to automatically make the leap of calling them racist, but I know mentioning that people are actually doing racist things is verboten. I mean, I'm a dude sitting here in a fucking Krampus hat, calling you all pathetic losers. Perhaps you should consider the state you're in, where this is the reality you find yourself in. Find something else to play, or quit playing role-playing games. Find some other science fiction show to watch, or maybe just quit watching science fiction. You still have all the old copies of Lord of the Rings, and you can imagine characters to be as white as you want them to be when you read them. You don't have to watch the new shows. You don't have to pay attention to them. Hell, you're helping to build their audience and their social reach and their brand recognition with all the complaining. And since there's an aspect of how our stock market now works where the brand recognition is as much part of the calculus of deciding a company's value as anything else, you are actually helping to increase the value of the companies that hold these IPs when you complain about them all the fucking time. Do you want Tinkerbell to die? Then you have to stop fucking clapping. You have to ignore her and walk the fuck out of the theater and find something else other than Peter Pan to be watching at the age of 47. And so until next time, comrades.
Stay crappinated.